This is class 9 tissues chapter, plants and animals. First of all, what is meant by tissue? Tissue is a group of cells similar in structure and function. There are many tissues in our human body, like muscle tissue, nerve tissue, and blood is also a tissue. And in plants also there are different kinds of tissues like vascular tissues. Like in vascular tissues we have xylem and phloem and chlorenchyma, ciliated, parenchyma, like that many tissues are present. Here the first basic question is, are plants and animals made of same type of tissues? This is the first basic question we have to answer. If you see plants and animals, their existence and the way they move is different. For plants, they are sedentary existence. That means they can't move. They exist in only one place and they grow. And animals, they are active. They are in active locomotion. They need much energy. So their tissues are different from plants. And plants have supportive tissues in large number. And this supportive tissue is also called dead tissue because it's completely made of dead cells. That is called supportive tissue or dead tissue in plants. In animals, all are living tissues, and there is uniform growth in animals. And if you see in plants, the most important tissue in plants is meristematic tissue. It is also known as growing tissue or dividing tissue. It is called dividing tissue because it has the capacity that cells can divide further when the life of the plant goes on. So it is also known as growing tissue or dividing tissue or meristematic tissue. This meristematic tissue, which is a unique tissue which has dividing capacity, but it is limited to only certain regions of the plant, not the entire part of the plant, only certain regions. That we will see later in this chapter. And if you see animals, we have many tissues like epithelial tissue, muscular tissue, nervous tissue, and connective tissue. In plants, there is also another type of tissue which is permanent tissue. This permanent tissue is derived from meristematic tissue. That means when meristematic tissues dividing capacity nullifies, that means when dividing capacity becomes zero, the cells formed from meristematic tissue will form another tissue, that is the new tissue is permanent tissue. So it is derived from GMD is nothing but G for growing, M for meristematic, D for dividing. Growing or meristematic or dividing tissue. Once they lose the ability to divide, it forms permanent tissue. So we can move on to the next slide. And if we see the meristematic tissue, there are three types. They are divided into apical meristem, intercalary meristem, lateral meristem. You can remember it as ALI, ALI, apical, lateral and intercalary meristem. This type of meristems are based on the positions. If the meristem is on the apical, that means on top of the plant and the apex of the plant, it is apical meristem. If it is on the lateral sides, then it is lateral meristem. And if it is between the nodes, then it will become intercalary meristem. Here only intercalary meristem is shown in this figure. If you see, these are called nodes, and in between nodes the gap is called internode, and this is the zone of elongation. Here we can see the intercalary meristem. These nodes can be seen in sugarcane plant also. Very clearly you can see the nodes in a sugarcane. And intercalary meristem is seen only in some plants, and most of the plants have apical meristem and lateral meristem. The location of apical meristem is tips of stems and roots. The function is growth. It increases the growth at tips. And the intercalary meristem location is between the tip and base of stems and leaves. And its function is also growth. It increases length between nodes. If you see here, the length between nodes will increase because of intercalary meristem. Here the cells will divide further and thus the length of the internode increases because of this intercalary meristem. Lateral meristem. Lateral meristem location is sites of stems and roots, and its function is growth. It increases diameter. Instead of vertical, it increases horizontally. That means lateral meristem means it increases the girth of the plant. And apical, lateral, intercalary are types of meristematic tissues. And if you see another concept, that is differentiation concept. This differentiation is nothing but this growing or meristem or dividing tissue, GMD tissue, once it stops the dividing capacity, permanent tissue formation occurs. So differentiation is nothing but permanent tissue formation from GMD tissue. And three types of permanent tissues are parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, PCS are the types of permanent tissue. We will look into parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Collenchyma. First of all, if you see collenchyma gives flexibility in plants. Like if you see, this is a climber. This gives flexibility in plants. That's why it can grow flexibly. It can bend. The plant can bend without breaking. It's because of collenchyma. So we can see in climbers, especially collenchyma. And sclerenchyma makes the plant hard and stiff. That means sclerenchyma gives strength. S for strength. It gives strength. Husk of a coconut. This is coconut husk. Very hard. This is made of sclerenchyma. And another one is lignin and dead cells. Sclerenchyma is made of dead cells. This complete this husk of a coconut is made of dead cells only, because of sclerenchyma is made of dead cells. And another component is lignin is present in sclerenchyma. Just remember, lignin is present in sclerenchyma. Collenchyma gives flexibility. And parenchyma, the most important simple permanent tissue is parenchyma. Parenchyma stores food. Collenchyma contains food storage is done by parenchyma, and collenchyma, rarenchyma are subtypes of parenchyma only. When parenchyma contains chlorophyll and perform photosynthesis, this parenchyma is called collenchyma. And if parenchyma contains large air cavities, see here large air cavities are present in parenchyma. These air cavities if present in aquatic plants, these air cavities are present. Because of air cavities, what happens in aquatic plants is they can these air cavities help them float on the water. So in aquatic plants we will see a parenchyma with air cavities, that is called aerenchyma. So subtypes of parenchyma: collenchyma, aerenchyma. If contains chlorophyll, collenchyma. If contains large air cavities, aerenchyma. Another one is another types of permanent tissue. We have seen simple permanent tissues. Parenchyma, sclerenchyma, collenchyma are the simple permanent tissues. Now we will see complex permanent tissues in plants. In complex permanent tissue, we will see more than one type of cell. Not one type of cell, but more than one plus. Xylem and phloem are the best complex permanent tissues we can give as examples. In xylem, tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, xylem fibers are four types of tissues in xylem itself: tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. In phloem, we have five types of cells like sieve cells, sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers, phloem parenchyma. If you see in phloem, except phloem fibers, other phloem cells are living cells. That means phloem parenchyma, companion cells, sieve tubes are made of living cells, but phloem fiber is dead cells, made of dead cells. And here we can see the xylem structure. And xylem helps in movement of water, whereas phloem helps in movement of food. In food we have FOOD, and in phloem also O is there, so remember it as phloem for food and xylem for water and minerals. So if you see phloem and xylem, they are vascular tissues. Vascular means vessels, like tubes. Here we can see the tubes. Here you can see tracheids and vessel elements. These tracheids and vessel elements helps in movement of water and minerals that are part of xylem. Vessel and tracheids, which are tubes. Here you can see tracheids and vessels have thick walls. The walls are very thick in nature and transports water and minerals vertically. Vertical movement of water you can see in tracheids and vessels, which are part of xylem. And this is stomata. Transpiration of water takes place through stomata. Transpiration is nothing but a movement of water vapor from leaves to the atmosphere. Transpiration takes place through these stomata. Here this is one guard cell and another guard cell. In between the guard cells we can see the stomata, the air gap. Exchange of air takes place through this stomata. And we have chloroplast of guard cell guard cells have chloroplast, cell wall and vacuole. These three are present for guard cells. When guard cell opens, the stomata looks like this one, and when guard cells closes, then the stomata looks like this one. In this way, exchange of gases takes place. And because of this also, air pressure difference creates, and because of this pressure difference, the xylem can transport water vertically from roots to upward portion of the plant. This because of this stomata only. And you can see this is the leaf, and these are veins of the leaf, and in these veins there are still further grooves like structures are present. These are nothing but xylem and phloem only. We can move to the next slide. Animal tissues. We now come to the animal tissues. We know that animal tissues are epithelial tissue, muscular tissue, nervous and connective tissues are examples of tissues in animals. In animals. Example is this is an epithelial tissue. And what is meant by epithelial tissue is nothing but epithelia means covering, protection. Protective covering is nothing but epithelial. Epithelial tissue means covering or protective tissue. Examples of epithelial tissue are the epithelial tissue is present, it covers the skin. The skin is the best example of epithelial tissue. The lining of the mouth, the lining of blood vessels, lung alveoli and kidney tubules are all made of epithelial tissue. Anything entering or leaving the body must cross at least one layer of epithelium. So if any outside particle if enters the body, it should cover at least one layer of epithelium, it should cross. So that's the importance of epithelium. It protects the body not only externally by the help of skin, it also lines the organs, internal organs like lung and kidney. Those are also protected by this epithelial tissue. And the subtypes of epithelial tissue is squamous epithelium, stratified squamous epithelium, ciliated columnar epithelium, cuboidal epithelium. These are based on the pattern of the epithelium. If you see this epithelial tissue, this is very thin, extremely thin, and this is also flat. So extremely thin and flat and form a delicate lining. This kind of epithelium is called squamous epithelium. This is squamous epithelium. And squamous epithelium can be seen in esophagus, lining of the mouth and the skin. You can see squamous epithelium. The next one is stratified squamous epithelium. Stratified squamous epithelium. Here stratified squamous epithelium is not shown, but I will explain it. Epithelial cells are arranged in many layers. If this epithelium, this squamous epithelium is arranged one over the other, like books we can arrange like one book over other. Like if you arrange this squamous epithelium one over the other, that forms many layers, and that is nothing but stratification. That is nothing but stratified squamous epithelium. That epithelium is called stratified squamous epithelium. And another one is ciliated columnar epithelium. If you see here the fiber like projections, these are nothing but cilia over this layer. You can see cilia. This is nothing but ciliated columnar epithelium. Inner lining of the intestine and respiratory tract, we can see ciliated columnar epithelium. And this in this epithelium, ciliated columnar epithelium, the epithelial cells are present and they are very tall, and it looks like as a pillar. This is one pillar, this is second pillar, like that. It looks like a pillar like structure. That's why it is called columnar. So cilia is present, ciliated, and it looks like pillar. That's why ciliated columnar epithelium. And the next epithelium is cuboidal epithelium. See here, these are looks like some cube shapes. So if they are looks like a cube shaped, then it is called cuboidal epithelium. The lining of kidney tubules and salivary glands ducts, the ducts of salivary glands, whether it is endocrine gland or exocrine gland, there are many glands which are surrounded by this cuboidal epithelium. Then it is called glandular epithelium. If it is protects the glands, like salivary glands, then it is called glandular epithelium. Otherwise, if they are cube shaped, then it is called cuboidal epithelium, which is present in kidney tubules. And lining of kidney tubules is cuboidal epithelium. This is very important. And like this, epithelial tissue is 4 types: squamous, stratified squamous, ciliated columnar, cuboidal epithelium. So now we can move to another types of tissues in animals. And there are many types of tissues in a human body also. Like if you see the connective tissue, there are many types of connective tissues like areolar tissue, adipose tissue, blood, bone, ligament, tendon, cartilage. These are all types of connective tissues only. If you see areolar tissue, this is areolar connective tissue, and this is adipose tissue. Adipose is famous for storage of fat, adipose tissue. And fibrous connective tissue, these are types of connective tissues. And if you see connective tissues like areolar tissue, adipose tissue, these help in like if you see blood, bone, ligament, tendon, cartilage, these connects one another. Like blood, it contains plasma, and the cells of the connective tissue are largely spaced and embedded in an intercellular matrix. In connective tissue we see this matrix, and blood matrix is nothing but plasma. Plasma is the fluid matrix of blood, in which RBCs, WBCs, red blood corpuscles, white blood corpuscles, platelets are all suspended in that matrix. The plasma, that means the liquid matrix, contains proteins, salts, hormones. This blood flows and transport gases, digested food, hormones and waste materials to different parts of the body. And here if you see bone, between two bones, the connective tissue is called ligament. Ligament connects two bones. Whereas if a muscle and bone is connected, then it is called tendon. Muscle and blood is connected by tendon. Two bones are connected by ligament. So ligament is a connective tissue, and it is very elastic in nature, and it connects two bones. And a tendon is also a connective tissue, another type of connective tissue, tendon, and it connects muscles and bones. And another one is best connective tissue is cartilage. Cartilage is also a connective tissue, and it has widely spaced cells. And the cartilage and bone, the difference between bone and cartilage is bone can't be bent, but cartilage can be bended, can be folded. like the cartilage present in ear, nose, etc. The solid matrix in cartilage is composed of proteins and sugars. Cartilage smoothens bone surfaces at joints and is also present in nose, ear, trachea and larynx. Not only in nose and ear, it is also present in trachea and larynx. Another one is fat storing adipose tissue. This adipose tissue is found below the skin and between internal organs. This adipose tissue is present. The cells of adipose tissue are filled with fat globules. Fat globules are present in adipose tissue. Now we will come to muscular tissue. Muscular tissue is another type of tissue different from connective tissue, and this muscular tissue helps in the movement. So why it helps in the movement? Because muscles contain special proteins called contractile proteins. These contractile proteins helps in contraction and relaxation, and thus helps in the movement because of these contractile proteins. And the types of muscular tissue are striated or voluntary or skeletal muscles. Striated or voluntary or skeletal muscles. The shape of the skeletal muscles is cylindrical in shape, and they are unbranched. That means there are no branches, and they have many nuclei. That's why multinucleate. The only muscular tissue that have many nuclei or multinucleated is skeletal muscle or voluntary muscle. If you see here, this is striated. Striated means alternate dark and light bands are present. Dark band, then afterwards we can see here light band, then dark band, then light band. Like this, dark and light bands are alternated, and this looks like striations. That's why it is called striated muscle. And this contains many nuclei, multinucleated, and it is unbranched. And another one is involuntary or smooth muscle. This looks very smooth in shape and very smooth, and the shape of this smooth muscle is spindle shaped. See here, spindle shaped cells, and this is uninucleated. Every smooth muscle has only one nucleus, uninucleate, and it is unbranched and spindle shaped. And we can see smooth muscles in iris of eye, in ureters, and in the bronchi of lungs. In the lungs you can see in the bronchi, and in ureters, in iris of the eye, smooth muscles are present. In the next type of muscle is cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle, this is cardiac muscle. If you see here, there are branches. So the muscle cell with muscle tissue having branches is this cardiac muscle, and it is the shape of the cardiac muscle is cylindrical in shape, and they have only single nucleus. That's why uninucleated. Only multinucleated muscle is this voluntary or skeletal muscle. Remaining are uninucleated, and they have different shapes. Like this is cylindrical, this is also cylindrical, but this one smooth muscle is spindle shaped. We can move to the next type of tissue, that is nervous tissue. This nervous tissue is made of neurons that receive and conduct impulses. So impulses receive and conduction helps in communication. So this nervous tissue can be found in brain and spinal cord and nerves. See here, this is an axon, and this is a cell membrane, and these hair-like structures are dendrites, and this cell body has one nucleus, and this is axon, and this is soma, and this myelin sheath. In between myelin sheath we can see the nodes. Those nodes are called nodes of Ranvier, and at the end we have synaptic end terminals, which is connected to another another axons dendrites. These are called, thus a synapse, a gap is formed. And this is the end of chapter on tissues. And what we can revise, what we studied in this chapter, like histology means study of tissues, and tissue means a group of cells similar in structure and function. And we have seen different types of tissues in plant and animals, and they are how they are different, and what type of functions they are doing in these plants and animals. Like plant tissues, if we see, meristematic and permanent. Meristematic helps in growth in certain regions of the plant, and another one is after this meristematic growth stops, then we can derive permanent tissue from meristematic tissue. And permanent tissues are three types. Simple, they are further divided into simple and complex. In simple, we have seen PCS, parenchyma, collenchyma, Ciliated, three types. And parenchyma has subtypes like Parenchyma and Chlorenchyma. And this is P for parenchyma, C for colon. Collenchyma helps in flexibility, and Ciliated it gives strength like a husk of a coconut. And parenchyma helps in storage of food. And complex permanent tissues have xylem and phloem. Xylem helps in water transportation, water and minerals transportation, and phloem helps in food transportation. And in food we have O, and in phloem also O is present. Just remember, phloem is with respect to food. And animal tissues, EMNC. Just remember EMNC, E multinational company, like EMNC. E for epithelial, M for muscular, N for nervous tissue, and C for connective tissue. Epithelial tissues are examples of epithelial, or types of epithelial tissues are squamous, stratified squamous, cuboidal, ciliated, columnar, glandular. We have seen in squamous, like flat shaped epithelial tissue is a squamous. Stratified squamous is many layers of squamous is nothing but stratified squamous. And cube shaped cuboidal, ciliated, columnar. That means columnar means pillar like, and ciliated means having cilia. That is like the lining of the stomach, inside portion of the stomach have cilia. Ciliated, columnar. And glandular, and say like salivary glands. If they have protection over these glands, the epithelial tissue is glandular. And types of muscular tissue are striated, unstriated, cardiac. We can also say striated means voluntary, unstriated involuntary, cardiac or heart muscles. Nervous tissue, and is another type of tissue. And last type of tissue type is connective tissue. And connective tissues are like different types, like areolar, adipose, like fat storage tissue is adipose tissue. And blood and bone, ligament, tendon, cartilage, these are all types of connective tissues. And if two bones are connected by a connective tissue called two bones, if there are two bones, then it is a ligament. And if this bone and muscle, then it is called tendon. That connective tissue is called tendon. And ligament and tendon are also connective tissues. And last connective tissue is cartilage. Okay, this is the end of the chapter. Thank you very much.